Welcome to Psyche Talks. Have you ever felt, overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of information coming at you daily? Struggling to figure out what's genuinely important, or maybe you faced a really complex decision and just wished you had a clearer path through all that uncertainty. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into critical thinking. It's an indispensable skill, really. It doesn't just promise personal growth, it actively sharpens your ability to cut through the noise and make truly informed choices. We've taken a comprehensive guide on this topic, and we've extracted the most potent nuggets to help you navigate your own internal thought processes, understand the arguments you encounter, and, importantly, build a mental resilience that transforms how you approach pretty much every challenge. Our mission today is to give you a kind of shortcut to being truly well informed in the art of thinking, equipping you to spot biases, challenge assumptions, and, confidently chart your course.
Yeah, and what's often overlooked about critical thinking, I find, is that it's far more than just being analytical or, finding flaws in arguments. It's really a disciplined yet flexible mindset, a continuous process of self-correction and improvement, actually. It's about stepping back from those immediate gut reactions, examining situations objectively, and actively seeking out different perspectives to form well-reasoned judgments. This deep dive will really illustrate how it's a skill you can cultivate and refine, much like honing any other craft. It allows you to move beyond simply reacting to, well, truly understanding.
Okay, let's dive into the core of this then. The material suggests critical thinking can unlock your full potential. Now, beyond that broad definition, what are the tangible day-to-day benefits for someone like, our listener, who thrives on gaining knowledge quickly and applying it effectively in their life and work?
Oh, the ripple effects are profound, really. Beyond the obvious professional advantages like enhanced problem solving and innovation, which are huge in any career today. Think about your personal life. Critical thinking significantly boosts your communication skills. And empathy, too. It's about more than just what you say. It's how you listen and understand. That leads to stronger relationships because you can genuinely grasp differing viewpoints, resolve conflicts more constructively, and make choices that deeply align with your own values. It really allows you to distinguish yourself, moving from just absorbing information to actively processing and, leveraging it.
Right. So it's not just about tweaking how you process information. It sounds like it's a fundamental shift in your entire approach to life. It's about cultivating that instinct to question assumptions, acknowledge your own inherent biases, we all have them, and approach problems with a blend of creative curiosity and analytical rigor, empowering you to navigate life's uncertainties with genuine confidence.
Exactly. And that transformation begins internally. A key insight from our source material is the emphasis on self-awareness. It's described as the absolute cornerstone of critical thinking. Think of it like mapping your own mental terrain. You know, Self-awareness is that ability to observe your own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors almost like you were an impartial witness. It lets you recognize the patterns in your thinking, the emotional triggers, and how your past experiences subtly shape your current perceptions and reactions. Without this internal compass, truly objective thinking is, well, incredibly difficult.
Okay, and this is where it gets really practical, right? The guide offers specific techniques for cultivating that self-awareness. It recommends mindfulness, even just a few minutes daily, just quietly observing your thoughts without judgment, not trying to change them, just noticing. And also reflective journaling, actually writing down your experiences, your reactions, the reasoning behind your decisions. You might start to uncover subtle patterns, like maybe a tendency to catastrophize minor setbacks, or perhaps a default to jumping to conclusions in certain situations. It's like a powerful mirror, really.
Yeah, and as you gain that clarity, you inevitably confront cognitive biases. Now, these aren't character flaws. It's important to stress that. They're systematic shortcuts our brains take, often operating below conscious awareness, that can lead us astray. For instance, our natural inclination to favor information that confirms what we already believe. That's confirmation bias. Or the way readily available, vivid information can disproportionately influence our judgments. That's known as the availability heuristic. The real challenge isn't just knowing what these biases are, it's spotting them as they subtly influence your own decision-making. That's the crucial first step to mitigating their impact.
And when you start uncovering these invisible pieces influencing your thinking, it can feel unsettling, can't it? It's like realizing you've been operating on autopilot in some areas. But the material frames that discomfort not as a problem, but as a genuine sign of growth. It means you're actively pushing past your mental comfort zone, which is exactly where true intellectual flexibility begins. That makes sense.
Right, it's a necessary part of the process.
So we've explored the inner landscape of the mind. Now let's pivot to the fundamental tools critical thinkers employ when engaging with the outside world. How do we move beyond just intuition and truly build arguments and evaluate information with robust logical reasoning?
Well, logical reasoning is essentially about constructing sound arguments and, just as importantly, identifying flaws in others. It's about discerning whether a conclusion necessarily follows from its premises, the foundational information or assumptions you start with. We use it constantly, often implicitly. The challenge comes when the premises are unstated or questionable, or when the connection between the premises and the conclusion isn't as solid as it first appears. It's really about dissecting the structure of an argument. Are the building blocks valid? And is the construction sound?
Okay. But it's not just about building strong arguments ourselves. It's equally about spotting those subtle yet pervasive pitfalls in reasoning, often called logical fallacies. What are some of these common, almost rhetorical tricks we should be attuned to, both when we're formulating our own thoughts and when we're evaluating arguments from others?
Indeed. Fallacies are errors in reasoning that can make an argument seem persuasive, even if its conclusion isn't actually supported. Take the ad hominem attack. Instead of refuting the argument itself, you attack the person making it. It's a diversion, really, from the substance. Or the false dichotomy, which presents only two options when, in reality, many more might exist. It forces a choice that's artificially limited.
Hmm.
And then there's the slippery slope. This assumes one action will inevitably lead to a whole chain of extreme undesirable consequences, but without sufficient evidence for that progression. For example, suggesting that if we relax one type of regulation, the entire system will inevitably collapse into chaos. That's a common manifestation you hear. It's important to remember these are errors in logic, not necessarily malicious intent, although sometimes they can be, but fundamentally, they prevent reasoned discussion.
Got it. So it's about developing a sort of antenna for these tricks in others' arguments, but just as vital, scrutinizing our own thinking to ensure our conclusions are truly robust and not relying on these shortcuts. And tied closely to logical reasoning, the material truly emphasizes the importance of evidence-based thinking. It feels like that's more than just looking at a few data points, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Evidence-based thinking means grounding your conclusions in verifiable facts and reliable data, not just personal beliefs, anecdotes, or gut feelings or emotions. It demands an active mindset, cultivating curiosity to consistently ask questions and explore alternatives, maintaining genuine open-mindedness to consider ideas that might challenge your most deeply held beliefs.
Which can be hard.
It can be very hard. And practicing intellectual humility, acknowledging that our knowledge is always incomplete and that we can genuinely learn from others, even when we fundamentally disagree. This combination cultivates what the source calls the critical thinking mindset, a commitment to continuous learning and growth, rather than just clinging to certainty.
Okay. Once we've established that mindset and acquired these foundational tools, self-awareness, logic, evidence, how do we actively deploy critical thinking in those everyday challenges? Problem solving, analyzing complex information, making difficult decisions. Let's start with what often feels like unraveling a giant tangled knot. Problem solving.
Right. Well, the most common mistake in problem solving, honestly, is rushing to solutions before truly understanding the problem. Sounds obvious, but it happens all the time. The first step, maybe counterintuitively, is to clearly define the issue. Often that means breaking it down into smaller, more manageable components, like you said, isolating the individual threads in that tangled knot. Only then do you start gathering information broadly and objectively. Cast a wide net, consider diverse perspectives, look for patterns that might reveal the problem's root causes, not just its surface symptoms.
And once that clarity starts to emerge, then it's about generating potential solutions. The material strongly encourages brainstorming even crazy or unconventional ideas initially, without judgment. Then the critical evaluation begins, objectively assessing each option, weighing its pros, its cons, feasibility, potential outcomes, and crucially, any unintended consequences. It's not a linear path either, is it? It doesn't just end with implementation. It's described as a dynamic process needing monitoring and adjustment. What I found particularly powerful here was the idea of reframing the problem itself, looking at it from entirely different angles to uncover innovative solutions that were previously invisible.
Exactly. That reframing can be key. And this structured approach extends naturally to how we analyze information and arguments more broadly. Beyond just identifying the claims and conclusions, it's about dissecting the underlying premises. What assumptions are being made? Are they stated up front, or are they hidden? For instance, the argument, cutting taxes always leads to economic growth, often has an unstated premise about how people or businesses will actually use that extra money. It's not guaranteed. It's also vital to scrutinize the evidence itself. Is it relevant to the claim being made? Is it reliable? Is it from a credible source? And importantly, is it sufficient to truly support the conclusion? A single anecdote usually isn't enough.
Right. And again, it's about watching for those subtle logical pitfalls. Beyond the explicit fallacies we discussed earlier, the material warns against confusing correlation with causation, that classic example being ice cream sales and drowning incidents both increasing in summer. They're correlated by the season, obviously, but one doesn't cause the other. Or uncovering those hidden assumptions we just mentioned. These nuances are absolutely crucial for robust, objective thinking, preventing us from drawing flawed conclusions from data that might look convincing on the surface. So, shifting from analysis to active decision-making, how does critical thinking impact our choices, especially when we're faced with diverse viewpoints or really complex situations where there's no single right answer?
Well, engaging with diverse perspectives isn't just, being polite. It's absolutely essential for good critical thinking. It directly challenges our own assumptions, it broadens our understanding, and it consistently leads to more nuanced and robust solutions. The material specifically advises actively seeking out sources that challenge your existing views. If you tend to lean a certain political way, make an effort to read publications that offer a well-reasoned counter perspective. The goal isn't necessarily to change your mind, though that might happen. It's to genuinely understand why different viewpoints exist and the reasoning behind them. This enriches your own mental model significantly.
Yeah, that connects directly to active listening and developing genuine empathy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Truly trying to understand the experiences or values that might have shaped someone else's viewpoint, even if you disagree. And here's a really powerful technique our source highlights. Steel manning. Have you heard of this?
Yes, it's a fantastic concept.
It means constructing the strongest possible version of someone else's argument, even, and maybe especially, if you profoundly disagree with it. It forces you to engage with the most robust form of an opposing view, which incredibly strengthens your own critical thinking far more effectively than just attacking a weaker, distorted version of straw man.
Absolutely. It demonstrates intellectual integrity, too. And in decision-making itself, the source describes it as navigating a crossroads of uncertainty. It's presented as a structured process, clearly defining the decision at hand, thoroughly gathering relevant information, then identifying and evaluating all viable options, maybe using something like a decision matrix for a more objective comparison, depending on the complexity. This is where balancing that logical assessment with informed intuition becomes critical. Using scenario planning, perhaps, to manage uncertainty and explore how a decision might play out under different possible futures. The key, though, is to actively avoid common pitfalls, like analysis paralysis, getting so lost in data you never actually make a choice. Been there. We all have. Or groupthink, where the desire for harmony within a group ends up squashing dissenting opinions, often leading to pretty irrational outcomes. Actively encouraging dissent, respectfully of course, can actually save you from a bad decision.
That's a great point. Okay, so to bring this deep dive full circle, the material culminates with the idea of mental resilience. What exactly is this, and why is it presented as so vital for critical thinkers who are constantly challenging assumptions and facing complex problems?
Mental resilience is described almost like being a mighty oak tree in a storm. You bend, you sway with the winds of adversity, but you don't break. You emerge stronger. It's the ability to adapt effectively in the face of adversity, to bounce back from setbacks, disappointments, failures, and even thrive under pressure. And its foundation, according to the source, is emotional intelligence, recognizing, understanding, and effectively managing your own emotions. This allows you to respond to challenges with clarity and purpose, rather than just reacting impulsively or defensively, especially when confronted with new or challenging information that might contradict your views.
This sounds incredibly practical, just for navigating life's inevitable ups and downs, never mind just thinking critically. The guide specifically points to mindfulness meditation as a technique to build that emotional intelligence, helping you develop self-awareness and better regulate your emotions by sort of anchoring you in the present moment. And then there's the incredibly impactful concept of a growth mindset.
Yes, Carol Dweck's work, popularized by her. A growth mindset is fundamentally the belief that your abilities and your intelligence are not fixed traits, but can be developed through effort, dedication, learning, and persistence. People with this mindset tend to view challenges not as threats to their ego, but as opportunities for learning and growth. They embrace failure not as a final judgment, but as valuable feedback. This mindset really empowers you to apply critical thinking even when situations are difficult, emotionally charged, or just plain uncomfortable. It makes you far more adaptable and ultimately more effective in pretty much every aspect of your life. It's like the engine that keeps that critical thinking muscle developing over time.
What consistently stands out to me from this deep dive is that critical thinking isn't just some academic exercise confined to lecture halls. It's a comprehensive, almost life affirming approach to navigating complexity with greater clarity, confidence, and, well, wisdom. It genuinely empowers you to understand yourself better, evaluate information more effectively, make truly informed decisions, and ultimately grow into your fullest potential.
I agree. It means cultivating an active willingness to question assumptions, both others and your own, maintaining a healthy skepticism towards claims that lack robust evidence, and committing to ongoing lifelong learning. It's also about accepting that true growth often comes with the discomfort of confronting your own biases or realizing you were wrong. And understanding that changing your mind in light of new, compelling evidence isn't weakness, it's a profound sign of intellectual maturity. This transformation fundamentally changes how you engage, not just with the world around you, but with yourself too.
So, here's something to consider as you move forward from our discussion today. How might applying even one of these critical thinking strategies, whether it's deliberately seeking out a viewpoint that challenges your own, or maybe just pausing before reacting to ask, what other possibilities am I not considering here? How might that change a decision you're currently facing, or perhaps a challenge you're trying to solve? Thank you for your support and for listening.